All right. Good morning. I hope you clicked on that subscribe and that bell because I don't have a regular schedule and you don't know when you can see the smiley mug. You know, you never know when I'll pop up on your screen. So, anyway, for those of you on the replay and waiting for people to come in, salute. Uh, let's just see what will happen, folks. Uh, I have to steal these moments away while I can because I've been busy, busy, busy. Busy, busy, busy. All right, cool. The notifications are starting to go out. Good deal. But whomever you are, salute. I'm getting my coffee on. Unlike so many Americans out there, I'm actually getting ready to go to work. So, and I am busy. Do, 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 do. Good morning. Oh, is this thing going to keep acting up? All right, I'll just turn it off. Coffee ain't going to get cold, I promise you. Yeah, I am so happy with what is happening right now. What is happening right now in America is precisely what I voted for. I could not be more ecstatic, honestly. And it's such a good thing for American citizens and workers in general. Um, it's been a long time coming. And the embedded bureaucracy has been the fly in the ointment of having our machinery, being the government and our society in general, from working properly. So when I see these people getting their comeuppance, I'm jubilant. I'm ecstatic. I'm happy. Because these same bureaucrats are the ones that have inflicted their stupid ass Marxist policies upon our society so they could push forth an agenda without any forethought for their fellow countrymen. So when I see these government institutions shut down and the useless workers sent home, and very soon, because they couldn't get six or seven Democrats to vote with them in the Senate, and they forced this shutdown on a majority. The majority wanted to keep the government going. The minority wanted to shut it down. And in doing so, they have given Trump so much power, so much leeway to just line item cross off whole institutions and workers and just get rid of people that have been a pain in the ass for too long. And even if they come back later saying, "Hey, you need to fill these positions back in," they don't have to fill in the people they were fired. They can actually bring in patriots to fill those positions. The embedded Marxists in our government are being sussed out as we speak. This could not been a better opportunity handed to Trump than, I don't know. I mean, just think of anything to give a man basically a line item veto on our economy and the work in every sector of our government as far as the workers go. You gave that man just a blank check to go out there and just eviscerate the Democratic stronghold in the bureaucracy. And it couldn't happen to a better bunch of people. I'm being perfectly honest. They deserve this 100%. What's up, Michael? Well, it's what the Marxists did. Why do you think there's so many Marxists in power and bureaucracy? They didn't get there by accident. And let's be frank, every new administration comes in, they bring in their own people. That makes sense. You're a new coach on the football team, you're bringing in your own assistant coaches and trainers. And then you're going to work with the GM and say, hey, these are the players that I want. Right? They've already pre-scouted a lot of these people. Every new administration, I don't care what it is, business, sports, government, they want their people that will work with the system that's being implemented to get things done. And Trump learned this lesson from this first administration. And we had Project Veritas and James O'Keefe out there doing the undercover. And he did interview these bureaucrats. And it's like, well, Trump can make these executive orders, but we in the bureaucracy, we have ways of slowing things down to where we're not actually going to do the things that he wants us to do. Well, then that person needs to go. And now with this government shutdown, that has given Trump the lawful ability to go and do so. And he is jumping on the opportunity. And it's glorious. Glorious. I already said hello, Michael. Not in this room. I don't know about your room, but not in my room. There are no Marxists in my room. Yeah. Well, I think we all can agree to say hello there, Michael. Yep. Have I seen? Hold on, let me get caught up. Have you seen the Chevron flyer? I have not. I have not. I'll be honest. I'm just now getting up. I made a pot of coffee. I had my oatmeal. All right. Had my typical old man breakfast, and I'm fine. And I'm feeling great too, by the way. I guess our dads and granddads had something going on when they came up with all this. But no. But so unlike the government employees, I'm actually getting ready for work. So I guess they can go learn to code, right? That's what they told us middle class people. Give me a thumbs up if you want government bureaucrats to go learn to code. Yeah. Can't believe that. Can't believe what they have done to our country. And they thought they can get away with it forever and ever. It's just ridiculous. It seems right one can get this kind of thoughts in the half zone between sleep and wake. Hey, it's called serendipity, right? That restful state between completely awake and sleep. Meditation. I meditated on this, right? I let it percolate like the coffee in my mug, and the ideas bubble to the surface. They distilled. They become prescient and clear. Yes. I mean, that's what meditation is. I'm just saying. Unless you're anti-meditation, I don't know what to tell you. Clearing your thoughts. No, I mean, but you don't have to be some great Einstein to figure this out. That the Marxists have been the problem. It is the ideology of eternal revolution. It's always the oppressor and the oppressed. There is no appeasing a Marxist, because even if you find and rectify an actual situation that needed to be addressed, They're just going to go on to the next thing, and the next thing, and the next thing, and they're never satisfied. They're never satisfied. And you're always going to have fighting in the streets. You're always going to have people at each other's throats. People are always going to be walking on pin needles. They're always going to be anxious because their neighbor, or maybe even their own children that they pissed off because they took away their Switch, is going to turn them in to the political police. Oh, well, Daddy said something untowards about, so and so in the government. Well, he's a counter-revolutionary. Oh, we got to go get him. It looks like more like it's akin to you being forced to be here, JD. I've never said, "Hey, JD, you need to come in, man. I miss you. Your thoughtful guidance is on point and relevant to the topic at hand. So I need you here, JD." Those words have, well, I have never said those words. That wasn't being sarcastic. I'm just saying. No. Well, the Red Scare wasn't a scare, it was legitimate. Joe McCarthy, turns out, was correct about everything. And because the Marxists and the Soviets controlled the entertainment sector, they were better at pumping out the propaganda. And that's just the God's honest truth. They were propaganda masters, they owned Hollywood, and they were able to pump it out. McCarthy was one senator. One. Versus all of Hollywood with the thousands of employees that'd be able to pump that bullshit out. So Joe McCarthy was correct about all of it. Yeah, it's not. And Thomas just nailed it. All right, hold on. Well, there's communism is totalitarianism is a large part of communism. Absolutely. Just as it's a large part of fascism and Nazism. And several other isms, if you want to be quite frank. You can even say a monarchy is totalitarianism, or at least authoritarian. No, it's not. On paper, it may be its ideological opposite, but it's not in reality. When it's implemented, it always comes with a mountain of skulls, abject misery, famine. Right? After all, before Hitler's concentration camps, you had Stalin's gulags. Before the Holocaust, you had the Holodomor. And everywhere that communism was implemented, from Lenin to Mao to Pol Pot to even Cuba, it's been an unmitigated disaster. And it's always been implemented with what? Totalitarianism. No, he asked for an explanation. I'm giving that. It's not a buzzword. It is what it is. See, some of you are just midwits, and you see something written down, but you have no contextual way of visualizing what you're reading, and then you don't have a filter to suss out the bullshit. And that's why I'm here. I'm here to help you filter out the bullshit. No. I'm not a parrot for anybody. I'm just a man by myself that's going to go to work. Unlike hundreds of thousands of government employees and the bureaucracy. Except for the vital ones. They get to go to work. They get a paycheck. The other ones, turns out they're really not so necessary. Go figure. Uh-oh. Did somebody say a bad word? You call everyone Nazis and fascists. Well, not me. I don't. Because I know the difference. Because Nazis and fascists aren't the same. They're just not, historically or politically. Growth in living standards. Yeah, well, if you actually did some more research into what China is putting out there, it's actually. Do you know what the term Potemkin village is? Do you know what that means? Potemkin? China is showing you their good side. They're only showing you what they want you to see. And people take that hook, line, and sinker. Turns out, yeah, they made some construction projects, but they did it substandard. And now, because they cut too many corners, which is apparently a real issue in their society because they're not a high trust society and they're always about getting one up on each other. They always got one hand in their neighbor's pocket. Their infrastructure is starting to crumble. It's disintegrating before our very eyes. It wasn't even a month ago that a bridge collapsed. Whole buildings are falling down. Roads are being sucked in by giant sinkholes. I mean, it's not what you think it is. They have made some progress, but it wasn't through the innovation of the Chinese. It's because they stole uh, the information is what they did. No. Yeah, I mean, to be sure, we have problems. Like, a couple of years ago, we had that barge that bumped into that bridge in Baltimore. Yeah. But that bridge had been up for, what, 100 years or more? All right. So, I mean, yeah, we have problems. Uh, and it's self-inflicted. I'll tell you why we have infrastructure problems here in the United States. It's because we've allowed our American corporations to shut down our factories, our mills, our plants, and then send them overseas so they can utilize what amounts to slave labor and zero environmental practices. So that money that used to be there with that anchor employer in that community is gone. So all the people that used to service that company is gone. All the companies that used to service the employees that worked at your company are gone. And that means all that money that was circulating in that community is now overseas. So that's why those bridges crumbled. That's why you couldn't fill a pothole. It's because they allowed these people to go overseas to get away from paying a fair wage and being at least pay some lip service to the environment. But that's starting to change. That is starting to change. And California is finding that out too. All the air quality, all the forcing people to bullshit electric vehicles, none of that's going to matter in California because, as it turns out, we live on a globe. And yes, we do live on a globe. And on this globe, on the other side of the Pacific, is China. And California cutting back on carbon. Well, China has quadrupled what California has been trying to cut. And it turns out the pollutants go up in the atmosphere, hit the jet stream, go across the Pacific, and land on California. Who knew? Who knew? So if you are an environmentalist and you care about fair labor laws, you want those companies to come back to the United States. You want that to happen. We're not the ones that created a Texas-sized garbage dump in the Pacific Ocean. Two countries on the other side of the planet are responsible primarily for that mess. Do you realize that? It's not the United States. It's Two countries on the other side of the planet from us that are causing that problem, that ecological disaster. I think you're wrong. I clearly do. You can clean up some pollution. Uh, like back in the 70s, they invented the catalytic converter. Like smog used to be a big deal in LA basin, right? So the catalytic converter cleaned a lot of that up. But yes, I know exactly what I'm talking about. You apparently don't, but I do. I'm talking about specifically air pollution. You know, I mean, we can get into the horrible environmental practices it is to develop these EVs, and then how, yeah, they're not putting stuff up in the atmosphere, but guess what? We're gonna have cobalt, nickel, lithium, and all the other bullshit going into the ground because these batteries really can't be recycled, and they're horrible for the environment. Great. Now you're just putting nickel and cobalt into our on our water table. Congratulations. You fixed the pollution problem. Fantastic. You just put it in the ground instead of up in the air. Wonderful. They have been collecting the tariff money. Obviously, it's not all at once. You know, when they give you these figures, the politicians have a habit of giving you a 10-year cycle, which I never did understand. It's like I don't care what the 10-year predictions are because your administration at max is only going to last 8. So don't give me a 10-year plan because the next Congress can do away with that plan. All right. So those budgets are ephemeral. They don't last the 10 years. I don't think one has ever lasted the 10 years all the way through as they intended. It doesn't work. So yeah, I don't like those long. Now, I will say that he has collected billions already in the tariffs, which is appropriate because that's reality. Right? That's not gilding the lily. He has, it's been tens of billions actually, has been collected from importers to access our markets. And that's going directly to the US government. And that's how we're going to do things like, I don't know, not tax Social Security anymore. These Democrats are going to shit themselves when the Congressional Budget Office comes out and say, we've collected enough in tariffs that we no longer have to tax seniors on their Social Security checks. Who do you think they're going to vote for? Real policy that affects people. No more taxes on Social Security. That's huge. And that could happen with the tariffs. I'm not angry. I'm passionate. It is precisely how tariffs work. That is exactly how tariffs work. Evidently, you need to go back to school and learn how these things work. The importers prepay the money to bring their product into the market. And they hope to recoup those costs by selling the goods to the people. But the people don't have to buy their products. But the importer has already cut the check. They have prepaid. The government received the check at the customs office and they're depositing it in the bank to access our markets, to access us. We're the market. So that is how it works. It goes to some account. They don't have just a room full of they don't have a room full of checks, guys. It goes to an account. All right. Do you guys need some of this? Do you need this Java more than I do? Yes. When they cut the check or the wire transfer or however they get the money, it goes to the customs office, and the customs office is part of the government. Last I checked. Pretty sure it is. Right? It's not just some random schlub out there with a drop box. Hey, come drop your checks in my box here, huh? Come sell your goods. Drop me a check. It's not how it works. Don't be stupid. I'm not rage baiting. I get exasperated with dumb people. Yeah. And see, that's the thing. The entire point of the tariff is to make the domestic goods look more appealing, as they should. Because when you buy domestically, you're keeping those dollars circulating within your community. It makes perfect sense. And our companies have to follow good labor laws, paying fair wage, OSHA, things like that. I'm sorry, we are not wearing our safety Crocs to the job site, right? We actually give a shit about our workers. We're going to give them safety harnesses and a hard hat, all right, and gloves. They care about the environment. They're forced to operate in the United States. And it's not fair to have a once American product being made here, being shipped overseas and sold back to us, but they did it with substandard wages and no environmental practices. It's not fair to the American companies here. So you need the tariffs. We've always needed the tariffs to make it balanced. And see, that's the great thing about the American system. We're not saying, no, you're forbidden from buying those products. We're just saying that if you're going to do it, you're going to pay a little more. And that's fair. That's fair. I'm completely okay with that. I have been an advocate for tariffs for decades now, multiple decades, because they work. They always have worked. And what's not working are you guys not hitting the like button. If I even half-ass entertaining and having a discussion with you, you can at least give me that much. Just saying. Some days do be like that, Jorge. I got another one. Thank you. I appreciate that. They are absolutely ripping us off. Absolutely 100%. Maybe temporarily, but I'm okay with that. I'd rather slow down that sector and have more of those dollars come in domestically than it be on fire and then we're making some other asshole overseas rich. That's probably a representative of a belligerent government like the CCP. I am perfectly okay with that. Uh-oh. Oh. Well, John, that's definitely an opinion. Yes, we are a consumer culture, but we should be consuming more domestic. Look, if you haven't learned this lesson after the Kung Flu, I don't know what to tell you. I vividly remember that we had already purchased pharmaceuticals and PPE from the CCP. And Xi Jinping got into a pissing match with Trump at that point, and he said, I will drown the American people in a sea of COVID. And he denied access to the products we had already purchased. He would not ship it overseas. And that was, to my surprise, when I found out that so many of our pharmaceuticals are being manufactured over in China. I'm like, this is insane. We're beholden to a belligerent communist regime. And that can't be allowed to continue. I'm not saying end all trade with China, but certain industries are vital to the functionality of our country. Pharmaceuticals is one of them. Steel is another. I mean, there are many, right? If I want to go buy silk pajamas, right, I'll go get some Chinese silk pajamas. But if I need antibiotics, by God, I want access to them, and they better be made here so the supply chain isn't interrupted. Or at least maybe with Europe, there's no terrorists on going across the Atlantic, right? So yeah, we should be having more ties with Europe than China. It's crazy. Trump sold steel to Japan. That was America before Trump. Okay. I didn't say, John, you're not, I didn't say end all trade. I just said you should the domestic product should be made more appealing. Read the book of Revelations. Well, I did a long time ago. Um, that's a topic I can cover religion later, to be honest, but it's going to turn a lot of people off. Just being perfectly honest. Well, yes, John, because a lot of our corporations were allowed to go overseas to do that, and that is why do you think we're having a populist revolution? Right? The Democrats used to be the populist party. They used to be the party of the working man, and they turned their back on the working man. They did. So those people needed a new home, and Republicans, the new Republicans, are speaking their language. If you look, I'm an older guy. I'm 50. The way the Republicans are talking now are the way that the Democrats used to speak in the 80s and 90s. Go look it up. There's historical records all over the place. If you have the want to, go look it up. Go even listen to Bill Clinton talking. That's been circulating. Go listen to him. Right? Super popular Democratic president. Go listen to how he spoke about working people and illegals and so on and so forth. And mind you, Trump is not a traditional Republican. He's a blue dog Democrat. His ideals are from the Democrat Party from back in the 80s and 90s. But the Overton window has been shifted so far left because of you Marxist pukes. He looks like he's far right now. Isn't that crazy? No, I did not. I did not. But if you wish to sub, because I don't have a regular schedule, feel free to hit the bell. He is a Democrat. He absolutely is a Democrat. You may not want to. He's not a modern Democrat because he's not a socialist shitbag, right? He's not a Marxist puke, but he is a Democrat. He's a traditional Democrat. Yes, he is. I know, crazy. Actually, 247 according to this counter. I raise your hand if you think I bought you. Did I buy you to come here? No. No. I know it may be hard to understand, but there's a lot going on in the world, and people like varied opinions about what's going on. And then they see me live on their feed and then want to hear this old man talk. So here you are. Did I buy you? Did you show up on your own? It's just ridiculous. He's the 45th and the 47th president of the United States. That's who Donald Trump is. I'm sure he's got a biography out there. You can go check it out. You obviously don't know what the term fascist means. I would recommend going and reading on that. He's not a fascist. That is just a buzzword that these Antifa types like to throw around because they're LARPing as communist revolutionaries, thinking they're a romanticized version of El Duce Guevara. And in reality, they're just out there LARPing as ninjas, getting their heads kicked in because they're causing problems to society and breaking the law. And it couldn't happen to a better bunch of people because I despise communists. And Antifa are anarcho-communists. And I could not be happier watching these guys going out and getting DDT'd on the pavement like it's Jake the Snake Roberts out there taking care of business. It sends me a shiver of joy watching these blue-haired nose ring freaks getting their heads kicked in because they got caught they got caught burning their third Waymo car and breaking the windows out and terrorizing the people of that area, getting their comeuppance. It warms my heart to see commies being rounded up and shipped off the Gitmo where they belong. I'm just saying. That's how I truly feel. I'm just being honest with you. And I know I'm not the only one. There's just not so many people like me coming on YouTube talking about it. But I don't care. I don't care. I know precisely what fascism is. And if you go back and watch some of my other content, I describe it for you. But I'm not going to hold a clinic every live feed. I hate to break your heart. No, I'm anti-fascist. I'm just not pro-communist. And Antifa are anarcho-communists. You know, there's more in political theory than the dichotomy between fascism and communism. There are more than just the two options. And by the way, fascism and Nazism are left-wing ideology. They're only slightly right-wing in Europe. But to an American, they're way, way, way far left. Way far left. If you look at a political compass, they're only a couple of small squares away from communism to the right. But they're still in the communist quadrant. It's not. It's not. That's propaganda. All you have to do is what I like to call reading a book and actually like studying to realize that when Hitler, Mussolini, and Giovanni Gentili are coming out as avowed socialists, and they were socialists their entire life, and as a matter of fact, when they created fascism, it's because it's a spiritual successor of socialism, because socialism wasn't going far enough. Well, that's not right-wing ideology. That's not right-wing ideology. The only part of it that would be right-wing would be the nationalist part. Love of country. Which apparently is a bad thing. But all of their implementations were all left-wing. And again, all you have to do is open a book and read. No, he's not. He's not far right, as a matter of fact. Look at this America. Well, I hope you're talking about somebody else in the chat. Left and right, both controlled by Jews. I don't know. That's a Nick Fuentes kind of debate. I'm not an ethno-nationalist. You know, I get where some of their hard feelings come from. But I was having this discussion the other day with a friend of mine over the phone, and any ethnicity that comes together as cliquish, right? There's a lot of nepotism involved. My examples were the Mormons. Mormons are very cliquish. Muslims are very cliquish. Look what happened to Dearborn, Michigan. Or even with the Somalis illegally coming into Minneapolis, and they're flipping the electoral votes around to where now you got this brother fucking traitor representing Minnesota. You know, Ilhan Omar up in Congress. Minnesota was settled by Scandinavians, not Somalis. You know, so she doesn't look like the people that were from there, is what I'm saying. So what happens is you got these little enclaves, and they're nepotisms, and they're cliquish, and they form voting blocks, and they consolidate power. The Jews are no different. They're just better at it than a lot of people, and that's what they're really pissed about. They're just better at it than they are, and that's what they can't stand. It is what it is. I'm not a fan of central banking. I wasn't a fan of Alexander Hamilton. I don't think it's necessary. But central banking has, again, since I invoked Alexander Hamilton, it's been around. It's been floated around since the beginning of our country. You know, Democrat Prime Andrew Jackson, he put the kibosh on that so hard that they couldn't implement it until Woodrow Wilson, and they only got that through because the dude had a stroke and his wife was actually running the country instead of the vice president. And of course, that got us involved with World War One, gave women the right to vote, among other things. Also with the creation of the Fed. So technically, we have had a female president. She was just running the show from the behind the scenes because old Wilson boy had a stroke. And it got us involved in all that bullshit that we're still dealing with the ramifications today. Again, all of this information is hidden in plain sight in books. Yeah, I get what you're saying. Oh, hold on. Yeah, the alarm going off. Yeah, I get that. I get it. Did I not acknowledge? I see. I clearly stated. I see where people have some of their hard feelings coming from. I get it. I get it. But the problem is that even when you have ethnic enclaves that are nepotistic, it's still a very small slice of that community as a whole, right? So even say with the Somalis in Minneapolis, well, they're not representative of all the Somalis over in Somalia, right? Or around the world. They're just as varied in their thoughts and actions and beliefs that we Americans are. We're not all Democrats. We're not all Republican. We're not all libertarians. We're not all commies. We're not all fascists. You can't just blanket label an entire group of people like that because it's not correct. There may be a certain subsect of the people that band together, but it's not a representative of the whole. There are plenty of Jewish patriots that live in the United States that want America first. They're out there. There's a lot of them. So, whereas there's a point that they're overrepresentative and say in dual citizenship in our federal government and in entertainment and in finance, it doesn't mean all Jewish people are bad. That's just an incorrect way of looking at things as far as I'm concerned. And that goes for any ethnic group. That's just not how I operate. Right? Antifa are anarcho-communists. Communists are Marxists by default. I don't understand why that's so hard to understand. There would be no communism without Marxism. You know? It's not that big a leap. I mean, that's just what they are. They're tenants of Marx. And they crafted it into a government. Why are we even debating that? I don't understand. That's true. They did. Marx was a Jew, yes. But there are plenty of capitalist, patriotic Jews in the United States and even in Israel and abroad. Is what I'm saying. It's not. They're not the Borg. We're not the Borg. We're not a hive mind. All right. So you can't just say everybody. All right. How you can't even say that about Christians, right? Because you got all the different denominations. You got the Catholics and the Protestants and even the Mormons tangentially, right? it's like everyone's got different denominations that got their own little in groups, right? Some in groups band together, bubble to the surface, and take control for a while until they get displaced by the next in group. And that's just that is just human nature, people. That's just human nature. I don't even know how we got in the subject. Oh, central banking. Yeah. What I'm saying is, even just take Christianity. It took Martin Luther to create Protestantism, right? Because he had enough of the Catholic Church. But even the Catholic Church wasn't the only denomination then, because you had the Orthodox Christians over in Russia and Byzantium, because they were still around at the time, right? Which, by the way, Europe's sin was not going to Constantinople's aid when they were being invaded by the Turks. If they had gone back and aided and fought back the Turks like they were supposed to assist their fellow brothers in Christ, most of the stuff going on in Europe right now would not be happening. Byzantium would still be a thing. It would still be a Christian nation and empire, and it would be holding the hordes back from entering Europe. Instead, they weren't the right type of Christians because they were Orthodox. They weren't Catholic. So they allowed their brothers to fall. And now, these years later, they're dealing with the consequences. So there you go. A little history lesson from TC Boggs. You're welcome. That one's for free. Larry Fink, who is the CEO of BlackRock, who is also Jewish, dual citizen. I'm not a fan of Larry Fink. I'm not. Look, man, how many times do I got to say, I see your point? What I'm saying is a lot of people's hate and anger for these people, but you're broadcasting it on an entire group of people that had nothing to do with it. There are plenty of poor fuckers that are Jewish, right? They're not all multi-gazillionaires with a cousin Larry that works in Hollywood or the bank down the street. You understand that, right? They have poor people and rich people, just like Christians do, just like Muslims do, just like Buddhists do. They're not all the same, is what I'm saying, right? That multimillionaire that lives across town is not the same as me, a working class stiff. We may both be white, right? We may follow a similar religion, but I guarantee you that socioeconomic status is a big hurdle to cross, and we're not hanging out with each other at the local bar. I'm just saying, we're different people. We're different. And you have to take that attitude in life, because if you just go around hating somebody for an immutable characteristic of how you were born, well, I find that ridiculous. You really do have to take a Martin Luther King Jr. approach to it by judging people by the content of your character. Just because you're Christian doesn't mean you're not a hypocritical shitbag. There have been plenty of examples of them, guys. So let's just not get it twisted. They're no different in the Jewish community. I don't know what else to say about it. They were the Byzantines. Yes, they did. I remember reading about this back in middle school history. It was Byzantium. They were the Byzantines, and their capital was Constantinople. Yes. And one day, God willing, we will make Istanbul Constantinople again. And then after that happens, a lot of the troubles ailing Europe will go away. Just saying. Christendom will be reunited, and many things will be settled, and it will be better off for the peoples of Europe, because ultimately Europe is Christendom. You know, whatever. You need to be a politician. It's hard to always to do the right thing. Yeah. There can only be. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You just take the approach of treating everyone as individuals. I mean, is that really hard advice to follow? Right? Listen to people, give people a chance, hear what they got to say. They may not be who you think they are. And just because they're born of a certain ethnicity does not make them a horrible individual. I mean, it's just crazy to me. Absolutely crazy. But believe what you want. This is just one man's opinion. That's drinking a cup of coffee. Americans reside in a lot of them do. Yeah, there's a lot of Americans and people in Western society in general that think the world is Candyland and that the world is peaceful and not filled with barbarians and savages. And then when they get outside of Western society, uh, they want them getting beaten or eaten, and it's horrible, but it is what it is. Well, the Pharisees that had Jesus. Yeah, well, yeah. It turns out black people like to have good jobs so they could pay for their homes and their families and so on and so forth too, just like white people and Mexican people and Asian people, right? People just want the government to get the hell out of the way, stop putting the thumb on the scales on their lives so they can get on with the rest of their lives. They don't need the government creating a housing crisis that's exacerbating the birth rate issue. A lot of this, again, is because of Marxism. We didn't have a lot of these problems, let's say, back when Reagan was president. Even though he was hoodwinked, and I will say because he was in the throes of Alzheimer's, so they took advantage of a guy that was legitimately with Alzheimer's to grant amnesty to 3 million people back then. And the Democrats pinky swore that they were never going to do that again. This would solve all the problems, and then they would pass bills and legislation to fix the problems, and they never did. In fact, they doubled down. They're like, "Wow, that really worked. Let's keep doing that." So the American people have had enough. We're not the GOP right now are not traditional Republicans. We're populists. We're the working man and woman's party now. And we want good paying jobs and affordable housing. That's basic shit. But that's not what the Democrats want. Or at least that's not what they show you when they vote. All right? You can talk a big game, but there's only one party out there actually following through, trying to make it better for us working stiffs out there. And that's the GOP. That's the Republicans. And that's just the God's honest truth. No, it's not. No, it's not. Look, man, you obviously don't remember the 70s with Jimmy Carter. He was a horrible president. Dude, they created an entire vocabulary for how shitty the economy was back then. Stagflation, that happened under Carter. You know, they actually came out with a chart called the misery index because of Carter. And as soon as Carter got the hell out of the way and Reagan came in, I remember the 80s. The 80s were banging, man. The 80s were banging. And it's because we got the Democrats. You understand? The Democrats controlled the Senate for 30 years until Reagan was elected, right? So we got rid of the Democrat president. We finally got a Republican president. The Senate finally flipped Republican under Reagan. The House would not turn Republican until Newt Gingrich in the early 90s. And up at that point, the Democrats had controlled the House for over 50 years. Do you not understand that? So when Gingrich came in with the Contract of America back in the 90s, it was under Democrat control for over 50 years. I was born at the bicentennial. So figure that one out. For a quarter, a quarter of our country's existence, the House had been under Democratic control continuously. No breaks. I want you to chew on that. No, it is clearly Democrat policies that got us here. It's the Democrat presidents getting us in pointless wars. If you look back in history, American history, the Democrats are to the traditional war party. There are two, count them, two wars that only happened under a Republican president. All the rest Democrats. And even those two that we went into war, it was with full Democratic approval. No, I'm not. That's history. That's history, buddy. I'm not saying all the Republicans are saints, but it took Nixon. It was Nixon who ended the Vietnam War that was started by Kennedy. That was Kennedy's war with the domino theory over in Southeast Asia. He was assassinated, and LBJ just carried forward the Kennedy policies. That was Kennedy's war. It took a Republican and Nixon to end Vietnam. Of course, simultaneously, Nixon also ended the gold standard, or the vestiges of it, and gave us fiat currency. So, whatever. It was LBJ to fund the Vietnam War that signed into the law that they were allowed to borrow from the Social Security Administration Fund. And the U.S. government would issue that fund IOUs. That was LBJ, who, by my reckoning, was a Democrat. So, yeah, you just need to go back and read a little bit more, man. Read a little bit more. Well, yes, France was the catalyst. By the way, France was also the catalyst what happened to Gaddafi in Libya. That whole bullshit that we got embroiled in with Hillary Clinton, deposing Gaddafi. It's because Gaddafi not only was going to put the Libyan currency on a gold standard, but because they were also threatening to cut off France. And the majority of France's oil imports were coming from Libya. And Gaddafi had France by the balls, but France, being the cowards they are, got America involved in that. And whereas Gaddafi was not a Boy Scout, he at least had a hand in the stability of his society. Excuse me there. Whereas now Libya has open air slave markets. Congratulations, Democrats. You caused that. I thought you were anti-slavery. You just exacerbated, the slave trade in the 21st century. Good job, guys. Those are facts. You can naysay in the comment section all you want, but that's what happened. Yeah, well, that was one of the wars the GOP started, and they had the majority of Democrats voting for them. The other was the Spanish-American War under McKinley and Teddy Roosevelt. Every other war after that was Democrat. Just go look it up. Mexican-American War, World War I, II, Korea, Vietnam. These major conflicts that we went through, because we're a relatively young country. For as young as we are, we've been to war a lot, but with the exception of 2 times, it's been under Democrats. They caused it. Civil War was another one. So it is what it is, guys. That's the truth. That is the unabashed, unvarnished, go fucking look it up yourself truth. Mexican-American War, Civil War, World War I, II, Korea, Vietnam, all Democrats. Republicans were responsible for the Spanish-American War and the war in Iraq. That's it. That's it. Go look it up. Well, it saddens me that people like you, Richard, are out there that are illiterate, and you will never know the truth because you can't properly digest and process the information written down. I guess I can make an audiobook for you if that'll help. I'm not opposed to doing that. And how about now, smart guy? It's not selective history. That's exactly what it was. Okay, beyond the Spanish-American War, and when George Bush Sr. came into power with Desert Storm, Desert Shield, what other war are Republicans responsible for? I'm sorry. Do I need to play the Jeopardy theme? Okay, I'll do it. Do 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 do. No, that was Democrats. Democrats rebelled, and they launched an attack at Fort Sumner. It wasn't federal troops invading the South. The South invaded a federal fort and took it over. It was absolutely instigated. It wasn't the Union breaking away from the Confederacy. It was the Confederacy breaking away from the Union. That was Democrats. Now, whether you feel that they're justified or not, that is up for debate. However, what's not up for debate is that it was started by the Democrats. Right, Iraq. I already said that. Desert Storm, Desert Shield. The GOP. Spanish-American War under McKinley and Roosevelt. Desert Storm, Desert Shield with Bush Sr. All the other events, all the other armed conflicts and wars, Democrats. Go look it up. I don't know what else to tell you. I can't go over it enough, and I'm about to get ready for work, guys. But you're going to have to look some of this stuff up. If you want to prove all Boggsy Boggs wrong, you're going to actually have to go look this shit up. We're not an old country. It's not hard to go back, 250 years. The only bipartisan war really was the Revolutionary War, but it's because the political parties didn't exist back then, other than Continentals versus the monarchists. Yeah. You're so misguided about that with Russia, man. You're wholesale cloth inventing shit now, which is very funny. You come at me saying that I'm a mouthpiece and I'm spouting propaganda and whatnot, but yet you're doing the very thing that you're accusing me of, which I find very amusing. Very amusing. But whatever. I'm here for you to vent your spleen, right? You got all this pent up anger. You're like, oh my God, things aren't going my way. Republicans are so evil. They're Nazis. They're fascists. They're out there imposing law and order. And I prefer anarchy. And this is just horrible, right? We're sending all the brown people home. Even though we're rounding up plenty of Russians and apparently South Koreans at the Hyundai plant, but they're all brown people. But I'm just going to read what I want to read and ignore everything else because it doesn't fit my narrative and worldview. And I'm just going to go shout at the rooftops at this random old guy on the internet to prove him wrong and call him all kinds of bad words because you can't win an argument because your logic is flawed. But apparently that's what I'm here for. You're welcome. I'm a giver. That's what I do. That would be the Democrats. The majority of the tech bros out there are Democrats by far. By far. You have one guy in Elon, and he goes out and gets some of these autistic 20 something year olds to go out there and suss out. Mind you, Doge didn't have any power to eliminate these positions. They were just highlighting for Congress to look at, hey, this is waste, fraud, and abuse. You might want to do something about it. They had no power to go in there and take out anybody's job. That's just facts. But you read what you want to read and you believe what you want to believe, even though how factually incorrect it is. Yeah. Yeah. You know what? There's more people like me. And you know what? We beat you. We beat you at your own game. And our will be done. And we are righting this country, whether you like it or not. We are dragging you back to the Constitution, kicking and screaming, whether you like it or not. We will fix this country for working class Americans. It's not all about the top 1%. The rest of us want to make a living and engender a future for our progeny, right? Our children need a slice at the pie. And by God, we're going to make it happen, whether you like it or not. We will right the ship. It's going to it is happening now. Yes, you are. If you're living in a nation, you're in competition with the rest of the planet. You absolutely are. And some of you are suicidal empaths. You're literally slitting your own throats to make room for other people and giving up everything that your ancestors fought and stood for. For what? For what? You're destroying your children's future. For what? Or a lot of you are childless. You're destroying my children's future. For what? No, we're not going to allow that to happen. We actually have a stake in the game. We have families. We have jobs. This is the only place we've lived. This is where we're from, and we're not giving it up. We've had enough. You've implemented your ideology. It's a disaster time and time again, and we're just not putting up with it any longer. And that's all there is to it. The adults are back in charge. So tough shit. No, correct. Correct. And you know why I can say this? Because Donald J. Trump is in power right now. J.D. Vance is his vice president, not a feckless Pence. We have Pete Hegseth, who is now the Secretary of War, which was the original designation for the position back in the day. We're modifying our military back to being a fighting force and not a sociology experiment. We're fixing the fucking economy. And we're making it right for the American people. So you can go out and buy if you can go out and afford to buy a house again after this administration is done, you can thank people like me for making that happen. If you can go out and actually get a job that pays the bills, you're not scrimping like, oh God, my electric bill is quadrupled, my water bill is out of control, property taxes keep going up, blah, blah, blah. All of a sudden that becomes affordable again. You got people like me to thank. You're welcome. Ingrates. For now, it won't always be like this. It won't always be like this. Housing is going to become affordable again. Go back, be angry, naysay, do all that. But when reality finally smacks you in the face and you're like, where the hell did that come from? Well, you will remember this moment that we're having right now on YouTube, where I'm telling you where this is coming from and why it's going to be better for you and me and everyone around it. You will remember this point in time. And you're like, oh yeah, that old dude with the bifocals, he was right. But you won't come back and admit it, because that's not the way it works, right? That's not the way it works. You won't come back and admit it, but you'll know right here. Old Boggs is correct. And you'll even say a silent prayer for me that night, saying, you know what? That old man was right. I was young and lost and did not see the light. But now it's so clear to me now. And I'm just giving you a preemptive, you're welcome, no hard feelings. It's just the way it is. All right, guys, asking one more time, please, for a thumbs up. Doesn't cost you anything. If I've even been half-assed entertaining for you, I have got to get to work now. I wish you well, even to the haters. I really do. I wish you well. I wish you peace, prosperity, and hopefully a little bit of enlightenment, but I'll take what I can get. But everyone else, you have a good day. TC out.